Clint Eastwood, the final outlaw in Hollywood, enters Jimmy Kimmel's stage to advertise his latest movie. But what begins as a normal interview becomes a heated conflict that results in his expulsion from the How Did a Basic Discussion Show Go in the studio section, devolving into anarchy. Let's begin. Smash that if you're new here. Click subscribe and leave a comment with let's see where you're watching from. Who's watching this crazy ride? It's electric in Jimmy Kimmel's live studio. Blazing lights and a buzzing crowd. Clint Eastwood's enthusiasm far into the primary attraction of the evening is the 90s. Presence is sufficient to silence the room. He's in town for his most recent movie, a stark drama in which a rancher battles a narrative about corporate land grabs that says just as much about him as it is regarding the character. His gritty draw and squint. Clint doesn't like them, but they're still deadly. Of the fake chuckles in the talk show game, he accepted the finalized scripts with the sole purpose of spreading the word. Other than that, he's not playing backstage. Issues are already developing. Maggie, Clint's assistant, is a straightforward woman who has spent years by his side. She alerted the producers after sensing it. "Don't turn," she said in a quiet, forceful voice before. They nodded, but they turned him into a circus performance. Their eyes revealed that they were planning for catches, a viral moment to capitalize on his reputation. They urge him to comply, perhaps by throwing down a prop or make fun of yourself joke. Maggie is wiser than Clint. Ben, not for anyone, not for studios. Producers will pay even though they disregarded her. Awaiting it in Clint's nursing room in the green, looking at a monitor with a black coffee, as Jimmy Kimmel opens Jimmy's show. In addition to his monologue, he carved out that the crowd erupts in the latest celebrity outburst. Clint's countenance remains unchanged while he roars, his fingertips lightly tapping the Maggie clocks, that small sign in her chair. He's assessing the circumstances as before a draw. The gunfighter is heading, she murmurs, to a stage to test something. Hand that ignores the stage and shrugs when the manager says it's time. Clint lifts his head, straightens his jacket, and for the stage and the curtain alone, without any bother, is a distinct creature that Jimmy is rapping a little about. A public outburst by a vocalist laughing at cue. He changes the audience. Clint's entrance is being hyped by the man Clint Eastwood. The band's mystique, a nasty riff. The audience erupts, and Clint takes a slow, deliberate step outside, as though he's claiming the space. Gives Jimmy's hand a quick, firm shake, and sits with his frame trained to examine his eyes. The stage, the applause wanes and the atmosphere tightens. Now it's just the two of them. Jimmy plays it safe, and the crowd hums distantly. Initially inquiring about the origins of the movie. Clint, you're standing your ground out of loyalty. Voice. Discussing the land, the rancher, and the defend against greed with every word. The audience was locked in like a hammer, feeling the weight of his beliefs. Nonetheless, Jimmy needs to conduct a show, and he's searching for something lighter that will be popular. He makes a joke about Clint's cowboy days, inquiring as to whether he still rides. Clint's response to horses is brief. The crowd laughs when it counts, but there's a warning edge to his voice. Jimmy fails to recognize the moment. Jimmy tries to turn around while falling, tugging a narrative from Clint's past concerning a bar fight on an old western set. He's looking for a nostalgic laugh. Anecdote. Clint's jaw tightens. Didn't happen, he adds in a strained voice. Through the bustle of the studio, the crowd elicits a mixture of startled laughter and gasps. Jimmy smiles, believing he can make things smooth over, but he misinterpreted the space, and Clint, he reaches for a prop and doubles down. With a garish cowboy hat, it's held up as though a joke. "Come on, Clint, take a moment to the fans," he declares, gesturing with it. Claps from the audience encourage it, but Clint doesn't move. His eyes could cause burns. He murmurs softly, "Put that away," but every word conveys the studio's message. Maggie's smile cracks as Jimmy says, "Quiet." She shakes her head while observing from the wings. The silence in this situation is going to grow ugly. There is a loud pause in the studio. It seems like the time leading up to a Jimmy Kimmel is still holding on as the storm breaks. The cowboy hat attempts to dismiss it with a joke. All right, was a forced laugh. He throws it and adds, "No hats tonight," onto the desk, but the audience seems uncomfortable. A quiet murmur has replaced their earlier cheers. Clint Eastwood's eyes have remained fixed on Jimmy without blinking, as if he's the anxiety as high as you stare down a rattlesnake. Discernible, the type that gives your skin. Maggie's hands are prickled backstage. She whispered to the stage, her hands clasped. Sharp, the manager, warned you not to press him. The stage manager's perspiration indicates the switch to commercial from the control booth, but the director isn't yet prepared to release. They're getting the drama they desire. Jimmy feels as though he's losing control. Tries to turn back while shifting in his chair. To the interview, let's continue our conversation. Regarding the movie, he remarks in a slightly too intelligent, as if he's attempting to reset the. He inquires about the inspiration in the space behind the rancher's tail in the hopes of Clint lead the way back to safety. Leans forward, placing his hands on his gets on his knees and begins to speak, but it's not Jimmy's expected response is around. Clint says, "Those who don't roll over." His tone was low, slow, and combative. When everyone attempts to seize what's it's not about dressing up for laughter. The jab is delivered with force, and when the audience sees it, there are a few mixed gasps. With sporadic applause, Jimmy's smile clenches his fingers and taps the desk. The host makes an effort to maintain the flow, inquiring about the production of the movie, but Clint's not finished. He interrupts without warning. "Now that you know I arrived," his tone is sharper. "Here to discuss a genuine topic," he says, looking around the set. He illuminates the audience to avoid being a sideshow. "The mob stirs up some controversy for your ratings." Encouraging people who are unsure and whispers whether this is a component of Jimmy's. Surprised by his typical rapid wit, he looks at the ground, failing him. A producer indicating that it's time to finish up. However, Clint is doing well and he's not. "I've been playing this game for a longer time," he informs Jimmy. "Then you've been alive." His voice was firm yet had a fiery edge. "You can sell a product without playing your games." Narrative. The audience is now divided. Yelling encouragement to Clint and others heckling, believing it's a spectacle. Jimmy, attempting to regain control, leans in and smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Said, "Hey, we're just enjoying ourselves." Clint says there's no need to get heated, but he tries a fresh one, but the words sound hollow. Query regarding Clint's direction technique in an attempt to calm him down, but Clint swears he's not biting fun. His tone was brimming with contempt. "You call people are having a great time parading here. Make him appear silly." He points to the turn on the machine's bright lights. Once more, the throng is humming and feeding louder. Backstage of the unadulterated energy, the director's producers are frantic, barking instructions to prepare a commercial pause, yet the ratings are spiking, and a higher authority wishes to watch how Maggie paces it. Muttering that she was certain this would coincidentally, she sees Clint on his face looked like granite on the monitor, and is aware that he won't back down on stage. Jimmy is fumbling with his jokes. He attempts to turn to a lighter, but it is flat. Questioning Clint about his preferred function from the past, but Clint cuts. "You don't get it," he told him once more. Says, raising his voice just enough to convey the message that this isn't about me. Regard for the people's labor. Observing. The audience roars, with some standing booing the room and clapping, others keg. Jimmy leans forward, having had enough. He dropped the pleasant in a stronger tone. "Look, Clint, we're just attempting to," he says, "to give the fans what they desire. They love you," he gestured to the audience. "The folklore is something they wish to see." Clint makes a mistake, his eyes flame, and he leans. "They don't," he said in a low, cutting voice. "Want the truth, They want a clown. For a moment, the words linger in the air. Second, the entire studio seems to hold its breath. A heckler then says something out of the back is too jumbled to see, but it's enough that Jimmy breaks the spell, the opportunity to go up and applaud his hands. All right, let's have a little break, people, he adds, feigning amusement. Clint remains motionless as the band begins to play. His gaze remained on Jimmy, and the audience is tense because I know this isn't over. The band's loud, brassy music is an attempt to trying to block out the chaos isn't working. The studio of Jimmy Kimmel Live is a live wire. The audience is cheering and humming. The name of Clint Eastwood is being shouted. Wants Jimmy to defend his reputation, making an effort to smile and clapping as everything is good, yet his gaze flickers to the producer on the floor who's urgently indicating the end of the commercial. However, the cameras are still in motion. Observing this train in its entirety, Clint has remained still in his chair. He fixed his gaze on Jimmy, who remained mute. Difficulty that surpasses the music and volume. Maggie's muttering curses backstage, studying the screen, aware that Clint isn't completed. The director is tearing up in the booth. The ratings are really high. However, this is spinning uncontrollably while the band. Jimmy sits down and leans back once more. His voice was low off the mic when he spoke to Clint, but the crowd is near enough to observe fragments. Let's just calm down. We'll discuss the film, he says. Clint, attempting to save the segment. You had your chance. He doesn't flinch. Says in a harsh, blade-like voice. Enough to be heard in the front row. Phones out and the throng stirs, capturing the Jimmy's moment is already becoming viral online. His jaw tenses. He's not accustomed to being challenged in this manner outside of his own territory. He looks around the crowd in an attempt to assess their disposition, and chooses to play to him. Folks, we love Clint, right? Says, gesturing with his hands. Clapping in applause, but it's dispersed to split in the room to rally. Clint crosses his arms over his face and leans back. Unreadable. He isn't trying to win, he's here to make a point, audience. Hovering close to the wings is the stage manager. Tells Jimmy to finish it. But Jimmy isn't. He makes one final attempt before letting it go. It's time to take a cue and turn things around. Card inquiring about the cast of the movie, thanking Clint for his direction. But Clint you don't have enough of the script, he says. Listen, interrupting Jimmy. In the middle of a statement, his voice is quiet, but it has the ability to silence this has nothing to do with the film. Now, it's about your belief that you can make me a prop for your performance. A few yell. Tell him, as the crowd gasps. While others boo. The divide, said Clint, expanding. Jimmy's smile is no longer as keen. He's been in tight positions, and his face is flushed. Previously, but this is different. Clint Eastwood confronting him in public. He attempts to laugh, but it strainedly says, "Come on, man." He spreads his hands and adds, "Just TV," engaging the crowd by saying, "We're all came to enjoy myself." Clint trembles. "Not me," he said slowly and deliberately. Declares, "I came to discuss something. It counts. You transformed it into a circus." The remarks were sharp and half of the audience cheers as the throng erupts. Mocking the sound as it engulfs the set, Maggie nods to herself in the wings. With a wicked expression of delight, she's seen bigger egos than this are taken down by Clint. At last, the filmmaker refers to it as the monitors are playing a commercial break. Flashing advertisements, the band pauses, and the home lights dim a little, indicating a pause, but Clint remains seated. Motionless like a statue fashioned from Jimmy stands defiantly, murmuring anything to the floor. Producer's sharp motions irritated the audience. Some people chanting Clint's name are restless. Others arguing with each other. The security of themselves is becoming closer to on stage. Two muscular men dressed in black eyes on Clint but are apprehensive. Recognize him. Maggie advances, catching the stage manager's arm. Avoid even considering touching him," she says in a low, snappy voice. However, the stage manager nods fiercely, retreating, but the strain is just rising while the producers took a break. Voices shouted in a huddle as they tried to determine how to improve Jimmy's pacing in the show. Putting a hand into his desk close to Hare, whispering to himself he is aware that he's losing, but he is unsure of how to turn it around. In the meantime, sits quietly around Clint. A stagehand brought his water to drink. Eyes surveying the room and sweeping the audience, a few spectators lean forward in the front row, attempting to get his attention when he shouts, "You're the man, Clint." No more than a subtle nod. The break's nearly finished, and the filmmakers may allow Clint to stay, but Jimmy must assume command and the cameras begin to roll. The band cues up once more, and Jimmy coerces, returning to the desk. "I am facing a professional disguise, but Clint's prepared for the second round, and he's not here to pleasant." The studio lights return to full flame. The last notes of the band fade as the live audience of Jimmy Kimmel calms their whispers, a faint hum of excitement. The cameras are rolling once more, and Jimmy Kimmel enters his chair, his strained but practiced smile like a man returning to a boxing match. Clint Eastwood's ring, following a difficult round, has maintained his eyes and posture frozen past Jimmy, as though the host serves only as a diversion for the audience. The energy is unevenly distributed among those chants for Clint and the other people who are waiting backstage for Jimmy to make a reappearance. Maggie folded her arms in observation. Display of a mixture of pride and concern. The directors and producers' tensions keep the voice crackling across the headsets. "Don't let him take over, Jimmy." Jimmy leans forward and gives a single clap to bring the room back into focus. "We're back with the one," and his tone is exclusively Clint Eastwood's. Attempting to reset the lighter than previously vibe, he asks an inquiry concerning the cinematography of the movie, aims to ground items inside Clint's area of competence. But Clint's softballs are not welcome here. He responds to his calm voice, discussing the stark imagery, the way the land is a character, then shifts without being asked. "Gears. You are aware of the issues with locations such as this?" he asks, pointing to the set. "You believe that flash is everything. Making noise causes you to lose sight of reality." Some people in the audience clap, while others stir. Changing, Jimmy's eyes flicker uneasily with irritation. However, he maintains his composure by nodding. "Fair enough." He seems to understand their reasoning. Leaning back and attempting to play, Jimmy says, "The kind host, but this is people want a show, thus entertainment is right." He points out to the crowd that he is fishing for support, and receives a range of applause, and Clint doesn't recoil from alcohol. They desire to be honest. His voice cuts as he speaks through the cacophony, not some pretentious falsehood to keep him clapping. You feed him. Words strike like a blow, and the audiences there is an immediate roar of appreciation. From teasing remarks made by others, his fingers tighten their grip on the desk. He is aware that he is losing the space. The floor producer gives the command to turn around. However, Jimmy's pride is now involved, and he doesn't back down and makes an effort to. His tone leans in a different direction. "You're a legend, Clint. Look sharper. That's not up for debate. But you're on my stage, and we need to do a show." It's a direct challenge, and the audience senses Clint's eyeballs were spiked by their noise. Narrow only a little bit, but it's sufficient to give your stage a heavier feel. He says in a low, purposeful voice, I'm here because I choose not to dance." The crowd bursts into some standing for you, yelling for Clint's name, while others. Maggie will be pushed back in the wings by Jimmy. Muttering, she shakes her head and says, "Here we go." The guards get closer to their twitching hands, but they're still keeping quiet out of concern for Jimmy's having had enough. He breaks the host's fundamental guideline to remain seated. "And Clint, you want to talk about respect. Consider showing respect to those who brought you here." And now his voice is booming. The crowd is on, and the good man mask is off. The sound of its footfall was deafening, a mixture of cheers and alcohol consuming the set. Clint finally takes a moment to consider he filled the stage with height and presence. Doesn't speak louder, yet each word steps with respect earned, he says. Not purchased with lights, but closer to Jimmy and cheers. The crowd goes crazy, studio trembling in response to their response. The director yells for the cut in the booth. But the cameras,